All right, so today I just wanted to make sure that you guys know, like, that we need to be a little bit more practical when sharing the vegan message and making sure that we put ourselves in our shoes before we were vegan, just so we are able to relate to people more. So I share my message through fitness just because I know that there's an audience for it. So we need to make sure that we're also like not judging people who share like the health tips about veganism. What I would encourage is making sure that you're always connecting the animals to your message. So if you're posting a plate of food or your biceps, something like that, always remind people that we're in this for the animals and we're in this together. And some people will connect with it and some people won't. But it's the way that you convey your message that will either turn people off or turn them on to veganism. We have to be encouraging rather than pushing people away. And some people need a little bit of an aggressive type message to actually get that thing, to spark in their mind. But a lot of other people will just want to walk the other way. So just keep that in mind. I've been vegan for 5 years. It was a slow progression. I didn't know that I was going to go vegan. I actually started as pescatarian for 2 years when I moved to California, and then vegetarian for 4 months after that. And after I read an article about eating animals, that it was like bad karma to eat animals, and I have karma tattooed on my arm, I felt like I would be a hypocrite if I was to continue eating animals in any way or form. And I don't wear any leather, fur, obviously, anything like that. Tying it back together, we all have a different journey to veganism. Mine was a smooth transition. Again, I didn't know I was going vegan, but if I was in a stage of, let's say, pescatarian and somebody was trying to force me to go vegan, I would have probably went the opposite way. So just be patient with people and always be encouraging and positive. That's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Allie Taylor. I'm with Voters for Animal Rights. What we do is we work to pass laws to advance animal rights. We work to elect candidates for office who support animal rights. And we work to hold our elected officials accountable to humane voters, just like all of you here today. The three main priorities that we are working on right now are legislation in the City Council that would ban the sale of fur, legislation that would ban the sale of foie gras, and at the state level, legislation that would ban the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in pet stores. We've seen an unprecedented number of pieces of legislation introduced at the city and the state level. And now it's time for us to act on it. One of the most frequent questions that we get asked is folks say, well, it's been introduced, when are we going to get a hearing? The answer to that is we will get a hearing in the council and in the state legislature when we have built up enough support among these legislative bodies to actually have earned a hearing. So what that means is that all of us in the animal rights community need to be calling and writing your city council members and asking them to co-sponsor these bills. We created some very easy tools for you to do that. We have created nycfoiegras.com. You can go there and you can write to your council member and ask them to co-sponsor the bill. And you can go to Fur Free NYC and ask your council member to co-sponsor the bill to ban fur in New York City. Again, the most important thing you can do to help get these bills passed into law is to go to the two websites, nycfoiegras.com or go to furfreenyc.com to write to your representatives. You can sign up on our website, vfar.org. Thanks very much.
I'm the New York State developer for the Humane Party. We're trying to get the word out there about a party. There is no mention of animals, at least in the national level platforms for either of the major political parties. Talking about the lives of billions of sentient beings, and it's not even mentioned once. That's symptomatic of at least national level politics in the major parties. So that's why I got involved with the Humane Party, because it was the only party that really fit with my true beliefs, my values. If you vote with your values, as a vegan, you would want to vote for a vegan party. And it sounds a little bit far out, but actually in the Netherlands, we actually hosted a politician from there, Esther Oudhand, and she is actually a member of parliament in Holland. They have 5 seats. They started in the early 2000s. People thought they were a joke, but then they went from 1 to 2 to 5% of the vote. And they are passing and they're getting to help animal issues actually discussed at a parliamentary level in Holland, which is fabulous and very inspiring. Now, I want to talk about New York City because, you know, New York City is a city, but the incredible thing about New York is how damn big it is. It's 8.6 million people. That is bigger than Switzerland, Israel, Denmark, Ireland. Isn't that amazing? So changes in New York City are incredible. I mean, they're incredibly important, but they're also like the size of a small country. And everybody sees New York City. Everybody in the world knows where New York City is. So changes that happen here are extremely important, not just because they're important for the animals influenced directly, but also for the influence of the rest of the world. I wanted to bring up specifically the New York City Council elections, and Jabari was talking about that. Jabari did extremely well. He ran as a Green Party vegan candidate a couple of years ago, and he did extremely well and almost got elected, and he's an awesome person. And the city council elections are very interesting because there are 51 seats. They represent 8.6 million New York City residents. And what's interesting about that election is it doesn't tend to have a fantastic turnout. So it's typically got a 25% turnout. That basically means that you can win a seat with about 13% of registered voters. Now, there are probably 10% of New York City population is vegan or vegetarian. So if we could get them to vote for the Humane Party, they could win. The other thing about this New York City Council is it's 450 signatures to get on the ballot. We can get 450 signatures. The city actually matches small donations by a factor of 6. That means that small donors have a magnification of their donations, and that is another huge advantage to running in the city. The last but not least, and this will be a game changer, and Craig is going to talk about this right after me. People think they're wasting their vote when they vote for a third party, so they tend not to vote. But there's going to be changes to the way, or they should get passed. If they get passed, it will be a game changer. You will have a choice of multiple parties. That means that you will not be wasting your vote. There will be no such thing as a wasted vote. So once that objection is over to people in their minds, that will make it much more attractive for people to vote for third parties. The Humane Party is a party of the future. It's like a startup. It's totally cutting edge. If you want to be a part of a startup, and it's going to be part of history because this is the next big revolution which we are poised for and which needs to happen. I want people to think about running for office. It's doable. We've got 2 years. It's 2021. We need to create a vision of having vegan, humane candidates. We can't be our highest selves unless we vote with our values. So I want to have you think about stepping up. Please run. It's viable. You look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a congresswoman, right? And she has no previous political experience, but she stood up. She stood up for what she believed in, and she won. And there's no reason that other people, we can't do the same thing. I think we can do it.
Hi, I'm Craig Seaman, co-chair of the Animal Rights Committee, and we are very much in sync with the Humane Party and their principles. So we are working together to elect alternative party candidates here in New York City. The most important possibility towards getting that in New York City is ranked choice voting. That is an abstract thing most people think can't happen here, but we are very close to getting that. I'll explain how that happens. First of all, for those of you who don't know, what ranked choice voting means, you simply get to rank first, second, third choice of your candidates. So get rid of the stigma of split the vote. Well, now you can vote your heart. If there's a Green Party vegan who you want to vote for, you can. If there's a Humane Party candidate, you can list them second or the other way around. Just in case, because you don't want the forces of evil to win, your third choice could be the dominant party candidate running against the forces of evil. Now, because of ranked choice voting, what happens is even the dominant party candidate has to appeal to our voters. So whether we win or not, we force the issue. But under ranked choice voting, we can win because the stigma is gone. So how does that happen in New York City? Well, every so often we have what's called a city charter commission. This is the equivalent in New York of initiative and referendum. The charter holds a series of hearings and decides, based on public input, what they will put on the ballot. Well, this past fall, we had round one of the City Council Charter Commission hearing. And the Charter Commission hearing concluded we will have a second round, which will include a discussion on ranked choice voting for here in New York City. Those hearings, there'll be one in each of the 5 boroughs. You can go to any hearing. It doesn't have to be the one in your borough, and you can speak at more than one hearing. What we need to do is turn out people who speak. You will get 3 minutes. Everyone who shows up who wants to speak gets to speak. And you explain that you want ranked choice voting to appear on the ballot in the November election, and you want it to be for the general elections going forward. So we need you to turn out so you can elect animal rights activists to office here in New York City, regardless of party affiliation. In order to find out about it, currently the Brooklyn Green Party are hosting events training people on ranked choice voting and how to testify. So just look for the Green Party of Brooklyn, and you'll land on that homepage and you'll find information about that. To find information about the New York City Charter, just look up 2019 citycharter.nyc. So with that, you can put animal rights activists in office with ranked choice voting, and one of the largest cities in the world will have a step forward towards creating animal rights parties in office in New York City. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Soraya Beheshti. I'm a current student at Columbia University. I study anthropology and Middle Eastern studies, and a particular interest of mine has been exploring the connections between human and animal rights abuses. So I've been a vegan for over 8 years now, but I've also been very, thank all of you, honestly. But I've also been very involved with human issues, particularly with the refugee crisis. I've spent a lot of time in refugee camps in the Middle East and around Europe, as has my partner over there, who is also vegan, by the way. Yeah. So at the moment, I've been doing some research within university about these kind of connections, and it's really interesting because the connection between human and animal rights abuses spans many levels. So on the one hand, there's the actual technology or the mechanisms by which we are very used to extracting animal resources from. These are the slaughterhouses, the transportation, which then tend to show up again and again in human rights issues. But there's also the conceptual process of dehumanization that humans go, which is made easier by the fact that we already know how to dehumanize really, really well. I grew up in a meat farming background in New Zealand, so I kind of went a whole 180 when I went vegan. But something I really believe right now is that when we give children meat, or we kind of get them used to this idea that eating meat is extremely natural, we subconsciously teach them, 5 different things. One is that, off the bat, not all lives are equal, right? Keep this in mind. The second thing that we teach them is that it's okay to inflict suffering if it's socially acceptable. It's okay to inflict suffering if you're gaining something from it, if you're extracting. The fourth thing is that it's okay to inflict suffering if the victim can't speak up for themselves. And the last thing is that you should favor those who are similar over those who are different. So if you just let that sink in, I challenge you to try and think of one human rights issue that doesn't stem from one of those 5 things. Can anyone think of anything? It's not possible, because that is the core of all oppression. We see this time and time again. I know that there have been a lot of amazing, studies and research projects done by, people who survived the Holocaust and then went on to become vegan activists because they understood the experience of being dehumanized to such a degree, and they were literally transported to camps in animal slaughterhouse trucks. But I can even speak from my own experience. I was in 2016 in summer in the Calais refugee camp in France, which, by the way, is called the jungle, because that tells you how people think of these refugees, right? They're not even humans. So in a lot of my studies, I look at the process of de-individuation, and it's everything from, how the media portrays marginalized human groups and how they portray animals, just as we heard with the fish feel, that we're typically seeing people or animals depicted as masses, you know, no individuation, no individual characteristics or features. This is a very important and integral part of the process of depersonalization. And depersonalization is the greatest contributor or facilitating factor of you know, the process of moral disengagement. So the idea that good people, good citizens can actually end up being very complicit and even, you know, aggressively complicit, as we saw over there. I don't know if he's a good citizen, but aggressively complicit in doing things that they would never, ever otherwise agree to, because it's a slow and gradual process by which we get taught from school, from the government, from the media, from pop culture, like Carl's Jr. ads, that this is normal and natural. And we're so far removed from what's normal and natural that we can't even see that the center is really defined by what's at the extremes, and we're moving in one extreme. So we need to push it the other way around. And if you guys are really interested in learning more, you guys can follow me on Instagram, soraya.beheshti. My name's kind of hard to spell, so I'll forgive you if you guys don't find it. I also have a website where I post a lot of vegan recipes, also my experiences with my startup, which is a non-profit that is basically allowing people to monetize time. So refugees around the world, they're not allowed to actually earn money. 99% of the 68 million displaced people in the world today are not legally allowed to earn money in the places where they live. So we're creating a new currency based on time, something that we all have equally 24 hours a day. And part of what we're doing to raise money is we just released a vegan refugee fundraiser cookbook. So it's all recipes from refugee homes, vegan, because this ultimate structure of oppression is really part of the problem. So I look forward to seeing you guys all in office in a couple of years. If I could vote, I would, but I'm not American.
Hey everybody, happy Pride. I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people think about on Palm Sunday, and that is religion, or rather people who identify as religious or spiritual, any brand, any culture. This is such an untapped market for vegan values. So we know that there are 6.9 human beings on Earth who identify as religious or spiritual. That's a lot of people. And that's why this film that I have produced, I'm not the filmmaker, that's Thomas Jackson, who's a Student Academy Award winner. But if you just see back there, the man on the back row, he's got postcards. We are going to be doing a screening of the film Thursday evening. It's sold out, but if you know somebody, maybe they could get you a ticket. The reason this film exists is to reach out to these 6.9 billion people, and that is billion with a B like broccoli. So why are they so important, other than the fact that there are so many people in that category? There are 3 reasons that we have learned in making the film. That is, number 1, there is no religion, there is no denomination that outlaws veganism or vegetarianism for any of its members. And number 2, there are lots of indications in all the religions of the world that these compassionate ideas are actually a good idea. They've been hidden by culture, they've been hidden by tradition, and yet they are in there. In Judaism and Christianity, for example, Eden was vegan. Did you all know that? Yeah. Nobody ate anybody in the Garden of Paradise. And things kind of changed. But the other day I was on YouTube and I just didn't turn it off, and this video came up with an evangelist, and I'm not of that ilk, but she was saying, one thing I have learned is God never changes his mind. And I'm thinking, then Genesis 1:29 still holds. We're supposed to be vegan. And then the other reason, Yahoo, that this is such an important group to reach is that religious people, love them or not, deal with issues. You could walk into any religious institution anywhere in New York City and you could say, what's your position on LGBTQ rights? What's your position on female clergy? What's your position on immigration, on war and peace, on abortion? Now they're going to tell you because they have a position. You may agree with it, you may celebrate it, you may disagree vehemently, but they have wrestled with these issues and come to some kind of conclusions. But if you were to say to these same people, what's your position on animals? They would probably say, huh? Or maybe they would say, every year we have a blessing of the animals. And one of our next speakers, the wonderful filmmaker of Speciesism, the movie. Who's seen Speciesism, the movie? Mark DeVries movie? Do you remember the scene of the blessing of the animals, which of course is lots of dogs, a few cats, and then somebody pulls out this big poster of chickens in a battery egg operation, suffering terribly. The look on the face of the clergywoman, that look of incredulity, is really worth seeing this movie, as well as lots of other reasons. So what we want to do is be able to ask that question, what's your stand on animals? And have them have an answer. We want to be able to say, what's your stand on food? And have more than we want to feed the hungry. Of course we want to feed the hungry, but we also want to look at what is the kind of food that is going to change this planet in the way that all people of goodwill really, when they think about it, want it to be changed. So what do? Well, I would invite you to check out A Prayer for Compassion. You can actually host a screening, see me, see my husband back there with the postcards. We're having screenings all over this planet before we go digital in the fall. Bring clergy, bring people who don't know these things, and then find out what there is in your religious tradition or the one that you left that says, you know what, veganism may be cool. So just look, for example, since most of us probably come from Western traditions, but I'll just take a guess at that. Daniel in the Bible kind of reminds me of our wonderful vegan athletes. You know how we think about the bodybuilders like Robert Cheek and Tori Washington, or the wonderful runners like Rich Roll, and we say, woohoo, that's a body I want, maybe in this life, maybe in the next one. But Daniel was like that. He was captured, and the king wanted him to eat all kinds of meat and rich food. He said no, and he got stronger and fitter than any of those other people. And then we've got the story of the loaves and the fishes. Who grew up learning that one in Sunday school? A shout out to Rin Berry. Do a woohoo if you knew Rin Berry. The spirit of Rin Berry is in this park. He was here for every parade. He was also in this park every weekend for 2 decades, passing out his vegetarian guides to New York City. Rin is in the next adventure now, but he told this great story. Rin would say, when I translated the New Testament from the Greek, anybody here do that? Okay, Rin said, when I translated the New Testament from the Greek, I saw that everywhere in the New Testament, when the word fish is used, it's the word for fish. But in that story of the so-called loaves and fishes, that word translates first as a relish, something like hummus that you would spread on loaves. Second definition, dessert. Third definition, little fishes. He said some translator must have thought that it was more miraculous to multiply fishes than the other stuff. Well, to me today, that is the miracle of the loaves and the baba ganoush. So learn these things, talk to these people, and check out people that are working on this. In Defense of Animals has a group called Vegan Spirituality with a monthly online meeting. There's another group called the Vegan Interfaith Coalition. We want to get in there, we want to talk to these people, and we want to be able to say that if you can talk about war, and you can talk about immigration, and you can talk about abortion, I can say, let's have vegan cookies after church this Sunday without there being a mutiny. Thank you, and God bless you.
Hello, everyone. Raise your hand if you want to help end the suffering of the carriage horses that are right now in the park. Okay, yes. So that's why NICLAS was founded. And this has been a very tough issue for many reasons. You know, our current mayor pledged to ban the industry. That has not happened, but we did recently have some major change that helps the horses have a little less of a miserable life. when the rule change went into effect recently that got them off of 59th Street and into Central Park, the drivers can no longer pick up passengers in Times Square and other areas of the park. So this makes a significant change to how this industry operates and helps the lives of the horses a little bit, but this is not nearly enough, of course. We have legislation right now in the City Council called the Carriage Horse Heat Relief Bill. So we all know how brutally hot our summers in New York are, right? Especially the past few, because of climate change, they're more humid and hot than ever. So this bill would simply get the horses off of the streets when the heat index hits 90 or above. This past summer, I've documented the horses working in brutal heat waves, suffering respiratory heat distress, barely able to breathe. How can we allow this in one of the most progressive cities in the world? So all of you, if you can call your council member this week, just make one phone call, because we want to pass this before summer so that we don't have to see these horses suffering again in these heat waves. And we can do this, as others have pointed out. We have a lot of animal lovers in the city council now. So this is one more thing we can do to help these horses and continue on that road towards the ultimate goal. So please call your council member, say, I want you to support Intro 1425. We will have a hearing soon because we already have at least 16 council members on board, but we need more. One other bill, I'm gonna try to make this brief because other people already talked about the exciting fur ban bill and other bills that we all wanna pass, but you know, many of you probably know that we have many departments, city agencies, right? We have a Department of Health, we have a Department of Transportation, we have a Department of Consumer Affairs, but what city agency do we not have related to animals? Department of Animal Welfare. We don't have that, and we've been asking for that for a long time, and that's another bill that was recently introduced. Imagine all that we could do if we had a city agency completely devoted to animal welfare issues. We could get so much more done. Our city shelters could run more effectively. It would make a world of difference for animals. So this is another bill that we want you to support. And if all of you are signed up on the NICLAS email list, we send out alerts regularly. We're gonna have a lot happening to help pass the carriage horse heat bill and also the fur bill and others soon. It's a very exciting time for animal rights in New York City. Finally, we're making huge leaps. And I'm just so happy that we have such a strong community and that we're finally making these gains for animals. And this is just the beginning. Thanks, everyone.